You have 1 year, but how many times have you said that before? Next year will be better. Next year I'll change. Next year I'll finally start. But Stoic philosophy reminds you that change does not happen with time. It happens with action. Time is not the answer, clarity is. Because the truth is, another year can pass and nothing will change, not because the world stopped you, but because you hesitated, you postponed. You waited for perfect, but perfect never came, and time does not wait. You do not need more time. You need more direction. Purpose is what turns a year into a turning point. Without it, a year becomes repetition, a loop, a slow drift into the same place with a different calendar. But when you have purpose, your time sharpens your mind, clears your effort, multiplies. You wake up not to pass the day, but to pursue it. Not to exist, but to create, to direct, to move forward. Stoic philosophy teaches that your life is not made of years. It is made of moments chosen with intention, and when your intention is clear, your energy follows. So define it right now. What do you want to build, to become, to leave behind? Not someday, but this year. Write it, clarify it live. Because a goal not written is a wish, and wishes fade in distraction. But a goal defined becomes a compass, a contract, a calling. Every morning you read it, every night you measure against it. And slowly, you shape a life that no longer waits but moves. And yes, you will be tested. Distraction will whisper that today is not the day. Fear will tell you you are not ready. Comfort will seduce you to stay the same. But purpose, when rooted deeply, burns through all of it. This is what drives those who change the world. Not luck, not talent, not timing, but clarity and commitment to daily action. Begin before you feel ready, before the world understands, before perfection arrives. Begin because this moment is all you have. And it is enough. This year can be different, but only if you are. This year can transform everything, but only if you do. Not wait for a better season. Do not wait for more certainty. Do not wait for others to catch up. Start with what you know. Start with who you are, and build day by day with vision, with focus, with discipline. This is the foundation of a meaningful year. Stoic philosophy invites you to live that year not by luck but by law. The law of cause and effect, of discipline and reward, of clarity and direction. You don't need to fix everything today, but you must decide, will you spend another year watching, or will you spend this year walking toward your vision with every choice, every action, every thought? Because in the end, a year is not wasted by accident, it is wasted by passivity. But when you live it with presence, with power, with purpose, 1 year can change your life. If you want this year to be different, then your mind must be different. Not louder but clearer, not faster but calmer, not filled but focused. Because the first battlefield is always internal. Before life bends, you must bend your thinking. You cannot carry old thoughts into a new season. You cannot build a stronger future with the same beliefs that built your limitations. Stoic philosophy begins with the inner world, because until you change the mind, you will repeat the cycle. Different people, same results. Different cities, same dissatisfaction. Your mindset is the filter through which everything passes. If the filter is dirty, even beauty looks ordinary. Even opportunity feels heavy. So cleanse the filter. Ask yourself, what do I believe that keeps me stuck? What story have I rehearsed so many times that I now call it identity? You are not your past, you are your patterns, and patterns can be broken. But first they must be seen. This is why silence matters, why reflection matters, why Stoic philosophy teaches stillness, not because stillness is the goal, but because it reveals. It shows you what you've been avoiding, what you've ignored, what you've accepted without questioning. And once you see it, you can choose. You can interrupt the loop. You can say, not this year, not this version, not this fear, not this excuse. Because excuses do not expire until you decide to stop feeding them. You don't need to hate yourself to grow. You need to be honest, radically honest. What has worked? What hasn't? What must die for something? Better to live. And that honesty will hurt because ego will fight to keep the story alive. But the man who trades ego for evolution wins. Every time, he is the one who doesn't need to be right. He needs to grow. He is the one who stops defending and starts refining. He is the one who stops asking why life won't change and starts changing how he thinks. Because everything starts there. Stoic philosophy is not about emotionless living. It's about emotional clarity. Can you see your fear without feeding? Can you acknowledge your pain without identifying with it? Can you hold your thoughts without believing all of them? This is mental strength, and it is trained, not born. You train it by watching your words, by watching your reactions, by watching what you repeat, because repetition becomes identity. You think you're stuck, but you're actually just practiced at being where you are. Practice something new. Not just goals, but thoughts that support them. Not just discipline, but beliefs that keep it alive. Not just vision, but the mental space to hold that vision. You want more in life? Then think clearer. Choose better. Repeat stronger. And protect what enters your mind. Your attention is your gate. Not everything deserves access. Not every opinion. Not every trend. Not every fear. You must protect what you are building at the level of thought. This is where change begins, not with motivation, but with mindset. Mindset rooted in clarity and courage and calm. This is what Stoic philosophy offers you, not a louder life, but a lighter one. Because when your mind is clean, your path becomes clear. And when your path is clear, your year becomes powerful. It does not take a catastrophe to wake up. Sometimes it only takes honesty. Brutal, quiet, undeniable honesty. The kind that looks you in the mirror and asks, what are you really doing with your life? How many days have you drifted through? How many mornings have you given away? How many opportunities have you excused because comfort felt easier than clarity? You were not meant to live on repeat. You were not meant to exist in a cycle of motion without meaning. And yet most people live that way. They wake, but do not rise. They move, but do not build. They speak, but do not mean, because they are not alive. They are automated. But Stoic philosophy calls you to awaken, not someday, but now. You do not need to wait for pain to make the change. You can choose in peace. You can decide that your life is no longer something you tolerate, but something you direct. You can reclaim ownership one day at a time. Because a great life is not made in one decision. It is made in the pattern of your mornings, your moments, your micro choices. You want to change your year, change your day to day. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today you take your time back, your focus back, your word back. You stop negotiating with laziness. You stop reasoning with fear. You stop apologizing for wanting more. And you begin with discipline. Not to punish yourself, but to remember you are worth the effort. Discipline is self-respect in motion. Every time you keep a promise. Every time you finish the task. Every time you push past resistance. You send a signal to your own mind, I can be trusted, and that trust will change your life. Because when you trust yourself, you stop looking for external permission. You stop needing someone else to tell you who you are. You become anchored, and that anchor is built in the small, unseen, quiet, repetitive moments that no one claps for. But those are the moments that build momentum. So wake up, not just physically, but mentally. Wake up to how much time you've lost, to how much potential you've ignored, to how many cycles you've repeated, and don't hate yourself for it. Learn from it, then move in a new direction. You are not your past. You are your next decision, and you do not have to earn a fresh start. You just have to choose it. Not loudly, not dramatically, but clearly. You choose it in the way you breathe, in the way you walk, in the way you return to the present again and again until the present becomes home. This is what Stoic philosophy teaches, not to escape life, but to enter it fully, with eyes wide, with heart open, with resolve strong. You are not here to wait for better days. You are here to become someone worthy of better days, by how you live, by how you think, by how you show up. No matter how many times you've failed, no matter how long you've drifted, you can begin again today with one honest breath, one firm step, one powerful choice. And in time, those small choices will become the man you've been searching for, the version of you who doesn't fold under pressure, who doesn't hide from discomfort, who doesn't beg for life to change because he is busy becoming the change himself. You've decided to begin, but now you must decide to not turn back, because beginnings are easy. What tests a man is what happens after the emotion fades, after the motivation quiets, after no one asks if you're still trying. This is where most men quit, not because they can't, but because they never truly committed. They started with hope, but not with decision. And Stoic philosophy teaches you that a man who has truly decided no longer debate. He no longer waits for permission. He no longer entertains the exit that burns it. Because commitment is not saying yes, it is saying no to everything that pulls you away. You want a better year? Then commit with finality. Not I'll try, but I will not, we'll see. But I'm in. Your life does not respond to maybes. Your future does not follow the indecisive. Only when your soul is fully behind your steps does the path begin to open. But when you leave mental back doors, you will always find reasons to escape. So close the door. Not because it's easy, but because it's who you must become. The man who finishes, not just starts. The man who returns when it's hard, not just when it's new. The man who shows up especially on the days he doesn't want to. That is what changes your life. And yes, you will be tempted. Tempted to slow down, tempted to choose ease, tempted to justify quitting with logic that sounds reasonable. But you must choose to remember your reasons, not your feelings. Feelings pass, but commitment is a decision you make again and again until it becomes your identity. And identity is power, because when your actions flow from who you are, you no longer have to try. You just live it. This is what Stoic philosophy aims for. Not performance, but embodiment. Where discipline is not what you force, but what you flow in because it's who you are. The committed man does not need external pressure, he has internal clarity. And clarity is louder than emotions. Oh, write the contract with your future, not a fantasy, but a firm direction. This year I do not drift. This year I do not retreat. This year I do not negotiate with my old habits. This year I commit fully, quietly, fully. And if I fall, I rise and return. Not because it's easy, but because I am committed. The world fears the man who does not turn back. Because he becomes inevitable, not because of speed, but because of depth, because of focus, because of quiet, because of the unshakable decision to stay the course. No matter who claps, no matter who mocks, no matter how long it takes, he stays, and in staying he becomes not just successful but solid. And that kind of man is rare. Because most are still negotiating. You are not. You've decided, and from that decision, everything will begin to change. Not overnight, but every night you choose again to walk forward while others sleep. You don't need to move fast, you need to move deliberately. Because speed without direction is motion without meaning. Most people confuse effort with progress. They chase intensity, they worship urgency. They sprint without asking where they're going, and then wonder why they feel exhausted but not fulfilled. But Stoic philosophy teaches something different. It teaches the strength of small steps taken with intention, day after day, without drama, without noise. Because power is not in how loud you move, but in how consistently you want change, then act. Not once, not for 1 week, but over and over, with calm, with discipline, with patience. Every day you choose the path again. You don't need to feel motivated. You need to be devoted. Devotion is greater than motivation, because devotion moves when it's cold, moves when it's quiet, moves when no one claps. You wake up, you show up, you do the work. Not because it's exciting, but because it's aligned. You no longer need to announce your journey. You embody it. And over time, those quiet repetitions become unshakable rhythm. The kind of rhythm that transforms chaos into clarity. This is the secret of sustainable transformation. Not grand gestures, but daily alignment. Not chasing dopamine, but honoring discipline. Not reacting to moods, but obeying your mission. You don't need to be impressive. You need to be reliable, reliable to yourself, to your standard, to your future. Every morning is an opportunity to either recommit or relapse, to either return or retreat, and you do not need to move mountains today. You just need to not betray yourself. Not today. Do the one thing you said you would keep, the one promise you made in silence, and do it without needing to broadcast it. The man who moves without noise builds the deepest roots, because his actions are not for approval. They are for alignment. And when you act from alignment, your steps become lighter, your focus becomes sharper, your progress becomes inevitable. You do not need to leap forward. You need to stop stepping backward, and that alone will change your trajectory. This is the Stoic way to move quietly, but move daily, to live below the surface but with deep force. You do not need the world to understand your process. You only need to trust it yourself, and trust is built through action, not intention. You don't become disciplined by thinking, you become disciplined by doing, especially when no one notices. So stack your days with quiet integrity. One action, one choice, one pattern, repeated until who you were can no longer survive in the presence of who you've become. And when others ask, how did you change, you won't need to explain. You'll just keep walking with calm eyes, with steady pace, with quiet power, because that is who you are now. Not someone trying, but someone living with rhythm, with reason, with resolve. Most people are waiting for the timing to be right, waiting for motivation to return, waiting for fear to go away. But the truth is, waiting is just another name for avoiding. And the man who waits for perfect conditions never begins. Because conditions are rarely perfect. There will always be noise, always be doubt, always be pressure, always be something. But Stoic philosophy reminds you that power is not found in waiting for comfort, it is found in walking forward. Despite discomfort, you do not need a sign, you need a decision. You do not need certainty, you need clarity. And clarity comes from doing. You are not stuck. You are stalling behind reasons you've rehearsed too well. I'm not ready. It's not time. I don't have enough. I don't feel like it. But none of those can hold up when you decide to move anyway, because movement builds belief. You do not wait until you believe to act. You act until belief catches up. This is how change happens, not in your head, but in your hands, in what you choose to build in the middle of chaos, in the middle of fear. This is how you reclaim your life. One choice at a time, not to wait, but to walk. You cannot afford to waste another year hoping for ease. Ease does not make you better. Adversity does, resistance does, consistency does, and those are available every day. So what are you really waiting for? Permission, you already have it. Support, it may not come. A feeling, it may never arrive. You want to change, then begin now. While it's inconvenient, while you feel unsure, while your mind argues and your excuses whisper, move anyway. Because one small action in the face of resistance is more powerful than 1,000 perfect plans that never leave your mind. This is the Stoic path: to stop giving your future away, to fear, to stop renting your energy to hesitation. You are not fragile. You are not lost. You are simply unused to motion. But motion changes everything. You think the problem is that it's not the right time. The problem is that you keep waiting for the world to give you green lights when all you really need is to press the pedal, not recklessly, but deliberately. With your eyes open, with your soul steady. You are not meant to sit in place hoping life aligns. You are meant to become the kind of man who creates alignment through movement, through action, through repetition. And the more you move, the less you fear. Because momentum is the medicine for doubt, and doubt only lingers in idle minds. So do not waste another day and pause. Begin something, finish something, return to something, not perfectly but faithfully. And let your faith be proven by what you do, not just what you feel. You don't rise by doing everything. You rise by doing what you said you would do, especially when it's hard, especially when it's quiet. Because trust is not just between people. It is something you build with yourself. And without it, you will always second-guess your direction, your identity, your ability, because you don't believe you'll follow through. Not because you're incapable, but because you've practiced abandoning yourself again and again. In the smallest moments, you said you'd start early, but you didn't. You said you'd stay focused, but you scrolled. You said this time would be different, but the habit stayed the same. And the mind remembers that every broken promise becomes a whisper in the background, telling you not to try again, telling you you're not built for this. But Stoic philosophy teaches otherwise. It reminds you that trust can be rebuilt brick by brick, decision by decision. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be consistent. You don't need to keep every promise you ever made. You just need to keep the one you make today, and then tomorrow you keep another. And slowly you build a foundation so steady that doubt no longer finds a home. This is what makes you powerful. Not what you achieve, but who you become in the process of becoming reliable. Because when you are reliable to yourself, you become unshakable. You are no longer waiting for someone else to lead you. You lead yourself. You are no longer afraid of falling off because you've trained yourself to return. This is what matters most, not how you feel, but what you follow. Your feelings are temporary. Your choices shape your future. So build the pattern. Choose what is right. not what is easy. Keep your word when no one is watching. Honor the plan when the mood disappears. Show up for yourself the way you always hoped someone else would, not because it's easy, but because it's right. You don't need intensity. You need integrity. You don't need speed. You need self-respect. And that is grown in the moment you pause before breaking your word and choose instead to keep it. This is the beginning of everything changing, because once you trust yourself, you stop chasing external approval. You stop explaining. You stop justifying. You simply move in alignment with what you've already decided. Your life becomes quieter but stronger. You speak less but mean more. You plan less but act more. You finally become the kind of man you would follow. Not because of charisma, but because of consistency. Not because of strength, but because of self-leadership. And in that you will find peace, not because everything is easy, but because you are no longer in conflict with yourself. You've waited long enough, waited for the perfect mood, for the perfect day, for the motivation to arrive. But the truth is, motivation is a liar. It shows up late, leaves early, and only visits when things feel easy. It's not a friend. It's a stranger you can't build your life around. And Stoic philosophy teaches this plainly. Do not rely on feelings to carry your future. Rely on what you decide when the feeling is gone. Because real progress doesn't begin when you feel like it. It begins when you act even when you don't, and no, it won't feel good at first. You'll resist. You'll negotiate, you'll stall, you'll say just 5 more minutes, just one more scroll, just one more day of doing nothing. But each time you say yes to delay, you say no to your own evolution. And every time you skip the action, you reinforce the belief that you cannot be trusted. You cannot lead. You cannot follow through. But the opposite is also true. Every time you act when it's hard, when it's cold, when you're tired, you tell yourself something else. I do not need to feel ready. I do not need to feel strong. I do not need to feel inspired. I just need to begin. This is where life shifts, not in energy, but in repetition, not in passion, but in principle. The principle that says if it's worth doing, then I will do it regardless of mood. This is discipline, and discipline is freedom, because it frees you from the trap of your own mind, from the belief that you can only act when the stars align. They won't, and they don't have to. The sun rises with or without your permission. And so should your habits. Your actions must become automatic, not mindless but unquestioned. You don't ask, should I do the work? You do it, because it's what you do, because it's what you've chosen. And in that consistency you find calm. You no longer chase highs, you no longer spiral in lows. You simply move with rhythm, with resolve. This is the way. And yes, you will still feel tired, you will still feel doubt, you will still feel resistance. But feeling it does not mean feeding it. You can feel and still act. You can feel and still show up. You can feel and still do exactly what needs to be done. That is the difference between those who change and those who repeat. Those who change don't wait. They create even when they're afraid, even when they don't have full answers, even when nothing outside feels certain, because they've built something inside that is stronger than circumstance. And what they've built is a Kodia standard, a commitment to movement. This is not emotionless, this is powerful. The power to do what matters no matter what else is happening. And over time, this becomes your peace. You are no longer a slave to emotion, a prisoner of energy, a follower of mood. You are a leader of your own attention, your own time, your own life. You do not wait for fire. You become the fire. You do not wait for the way you walk it. And the more you walk, the more natural it feels, until the question is no longer, do I feel like it? The question becomes, how can I show up even more fully? Because when action becomes your baseline, your life no longer depends on luck. It depends on you. And that is how you become free. Change does not come from one moment of brilliance. It comes from 1,000 quiet repetitions. Not from the lightning, but from the steady rain yet. Most people keep waiting for one big shift, one turning point, one grand moment to make them new. But Stoic philosophy teaches something quieter and more real, that change is not found in one decision. It is found in who you become when no one sees. It is found in the way you rise after the 3rd fall, in the way you return after the 7th drift. It is found in choosing again and again and again, even when the world offers every excuse to stop. The world rewards intensity, but life rewards consistency. You can sprint for a day. You can crash for a week, but you will only transform if you stay day after day, choice after choice, breath after breath, doing the small things, the essential things, the invisible things that no one celebrates but everything depends on. Your future is built in the small hours, when you could quit, but don't, when you could delay, but don't when you could make an excuse, but instead you move. You act with integrity when no one claps, with discipline when no one reminds you. This is the space where everything real is made. No spotlight, no stage, no noise, just repetition of the right things over time. This is not glamorous, but it is powerful. Because repetition becomes rhythm and rhythm becomes identity. And when you've repeated long enough, you stop asking if it's working. Because it's no longer about the result. It's about who you are. You've become the kind of person who does the work, who stays the course, who leads himself, not just once, but always. And that is what changes everything. Not the size of your goals, but the shape of your habits. Not how loud you start, but how silently you sustain. You don't need more intensity. You need more intention in the small, simple, non-negotiable things. Wake up on time, move your body, protect your mind, speak with clarity, stay present, finish what you start, and repeat. This is how mastery is made. Not with noise, but with quiet ownership, or what you do, what you think, what you allow. And the more you repeat, the less doubt you feel. Because confidence is not a feeling, it's a pattern. And when you live in alignment with that pattern, you stop waiting to feel powerful. You simply are, not because of some breakthrough, but because of follow-through. And that is rare, because most people are still waiting for a spark. You've built a fire, a slow burn that doesn't need to impress because it's real. This is what Stoic philosophy offers you. The tools to build something stronger than mood, deeper than motivation, wider than luck. A life built on daily proof. You no longer explain you, no longer chase you, no longer seek permission you. Simply live on purpose with rhythm and resolve. Your identity is not built in public. It is shaped in silence, not when you're performing, but when you're alone. When there's no camera, no deadline, no eyes watching. Just you and the next decision. And that decision reveals who you are, more than any words ever could, because anyone can look disciplined for a day. Anyone can show up when they're inspired, but the man who becomes who he was meant to be is the one who shows up when no one will ever know. Stoic philosophy reminds you that character is forged in secrecy, not in secret acts, but in unseen consistency. It is the way you hold your morning. It is the way you speak to yourself in failure. It is the way you choose to act when no one expects anything from you. That is where it all begins. Want to know who you really are? Then watch what you do when the reward is delayed. Watch how you act when no one claps, when no one checks in, when the feeling disappears. Most people build their behavior around visibility. They do because someone's watching, they push because someone's measuring. But the moment the audience leaves, so does their standard. Because their actions were never theirs. They were rented by attention. But you are not most people. You are not here to impress. You are here to embody, and embodiment doesn't need to be seen to be real. When your habits no longer require validation, they become you. You don't act with integrity. You are integrity. You don't force discipline, you are disciplined. And that is the highest kind of strength. Not loud, not visible, but rooted. A man who no longer needs recognition to remain solid. He moves from something deeper, and that depth is what carries him. When the world forgets, because the world will forget, they will not see your early mornings, your silent battles, your inner struggles, your countless repetitions, but you will feel it, and over time so will they. Not in what you say, but in how you carry yourself. Your calm, your consistency, your clarity, those are the byproducts of private effort. You do not rise in front of crowds. You rise when you show up at 5 a.m. to do the work no one asked for, when you write the plan no one will read, when you say no to comfort with no applause to follow. This is how you earn self-respect, and self-respect is the seed of all real achievement. Not trophies, not attention, but the quiet knowing that you've lived in alignment with your code. This is not about perfection. You will fall. But even how you fall will reflect who you are. Do you blame or do you learn? Do you hide or do you adjust and then do you return? Because real identity is not built in how you start, it's built in how you recover. And recovery requires something deeper than emotion, it requires principle. And Stoic philosophy is built on that principle. To live by what is right, not by what is easy. To act not for the moment but for the long term. To build not a show but a life, one decision at a time, in silence and solitude with focus. Not because someone's watching but because you are. And you've decided. You are worth being loyal to. Not everyone will understand your path, not everyone will support it, believe in it, see it. And that is okay, because the path is not for them. It is for you, and you were not born to be seen. You were born to be real. And being real will cost you. It will cost you comfort, approval, company. Because the moment you decide to walk your own way, you step away from the crowd. And most people don't walk alone. They wait for agreement, for consensus, for applause. But Stoic philosophy teaches otherwise. It teaches you that clarity is often lonely, that direction comes with distance, that the moment you stop living by other people's expectations, you start to lose their validation. And in that space you will be tempted to shrink, to soften, to return, because being misunderstood hurts. Being doubted hurts. Walking alone hurts. But not as much as living out of alignment. Not as much as shrinking for acceptance while your soul is screaming for growth. You must decide which pain you are willing to live with, the pain of solitude or the pain of self-betrayal. And once you choose solitude, you begin to hear yourself again, your values, your voice, your truth, and you realize you were never truly alone. You were simply disconnected from who you were meant to be, and now you are walking back, not toward others but toward yourself. And that journey requires courage, not the loud kind, but the daily kind, the kind that keeps you walking when your circle gets smaller, the kind that keeps you going when no one asks how. It's going the kind that lets you be doubted and still stay solid, because you are no longer living for approval, you are living from principle. And principles are heavy at first, but they build muscle, the muscle to hold your path, even when no one else helps carry it. You do not need a crowd to validate a quiet calling. You only need conviction. And conviction is born in silence, in choosing your code and keeping it when it's hard, in choosing your direction and walking it without applause, in becoming so loyal to what is true for you that the world's confusion no longer breaks your focus. This is the Stoic life, not built on noise but on knowing. And the more you know, the less you need. You don't need permission. You don't need proof. You don't need understanding, you just need the strength to keep showing up as who you are, even when no one gets it, because in time the results will speak, and those who doubted will ask how. But by then you won't need to answer. Your life will answer for you. You've walked through silence, through repetition, through doubt, through solitude. And now you understand. This life is not built by chance. It is built by quiet choices, by small returns, by invisible victories. Not because you shouted, but because you stayed, not because you knew, but because you showed up when nothing was clear. You now know that the strongest man is not the loudest one, not the fastest, not the most followed, but the one who leads himself, with or without applause, with or without certainty, with or without recognition. He does the work when no one sees. He holds the standard when no one else does. He honors the process, even when it's slow, and that man is rare, because most people are still chasing a feeling, a crowd, a moment. But you have learned to chase nothing. You simply live by principle. And that is freedom, because you no longer wake up hoping life will give you something. You wake up ready to give yourself to the life you are building. And it shows in the way you breathe in, the way you walk, in the way you no longer explain, you just embody. What you once wished for, you've now become, not through motivation, but through repetition, not through passion, but through peace. And you know there is no finish line, just the next step, the next choice, the next breath, done with full attention, done with full presence, because this is your life and you are no longer outsourcing it to other people's timelines. You are no longer delaying it for a better season. You are no longer betraying it for short-term comfort. You are living it on purpose, with depth, with integrity. And this is what Stoic philosophy was always about, not a performance but a practice, not a mask but a mirror, not to impress but to align, You are no longer asking for something outside to validate what you've built inside. You are simply walking in your own pace, in your own power, in your own clarity. And that is enough, not because it's perfect, but because it's true, not because it's loud, but because it's real. And in a world full of noise, a man who is real is more powerful than anything else. So continue, not because you have to, but because you've chosen to. This year, this life, this journey, no longer borrowed, no longer postponed, but fully owned by you.